Jonathan Joestar. Jonathan Joestar is the main protagonist of Phantom Blood, the first part of Jojo's bizarre adventure, and basically the original Jojo before it became a whole family tradition. He started the brand, no refunds. He's a British noble born in 1868, the son of George Joestar I, and grows up as an honest, kind, and very gentlemanly guy. Like, so polite he'd probably apologize to a chair if he bumped into it. His life takes a dramatic turn when his father adopts Dio Brando, who immediately decides that ruining Jonathan's life is his favorite hobby, turning their relationship into a legendary rivalry. Jonathan starts as a normal, very buff human, but is pushed into becoming a hero after discovering Dio's evil plans and eventual transformation into a vampire through the stone mask. Determined to stop him, Jonathan trains under Will A. Zeppeli and learns the ancient martial art called Ripple or Hamon, which uses controlled breathing to produce energy similar to sunlight, perfect for frying vampires like crispy bacon. His powers include immense physical strength, sharp intelligence in battle, and mastery of Ripple techniques. Even before learning Ripple, he could fight multiple opponents and perform insane feats of strength, and after mastering it, he gained abilities like enhancing attacks, healing, walking on water, and unleashing devastating moves like the iconic Sunlight Yellow Overdrive. Joseph Joestar. Joseph Joestar is the main protagonist of Part 2, Battle Tendency, and one of the most recurring heroes in the Jojo series, basically the guy who fights ancient super beings while acting like he just walked out of a comedy show. He's the grandson of Jonathan Joestar and was raised by his grandmother Erina, growing up rebellious, hot-headed, and constantly getting into fights, which explains why he solves most problems with both fists and sarcasm. His origin ties directly to the Joestar bloodline, inheriting a natural ability called Hamon, also known as Ripple, a breathing-based energy that mimics sunlight and is especially effective against vampires and other supernatural enemies. Though unlike his gentlemanly grandfather, Joseph prefers trickery, mind games, and predicting his opponent's next line. After training under his mother Lisa, he becomes a skilled Hamon user and even weaponizes random objects like clackers to channel the energy in creative ways. Later in life, he gains a stand called Hermit Purple, a vine-like psychic ability that allows him to perform spirit photography and track enemies, basically turning him into a paranormal detective with attitude. Joseph's true power isn't just Hamon or his stand, but his absurd intelligence, improvisation, and ability to outsmart enemies far stronger than him, meaning if you fight him, your biggest mistake isn't underestimating his strength, it's finishing your sentence because he already knows what you're about to say.
Jotaro Kujo. Jotaro Kujo is the main protagonist of JoJo's bizarre adventure Stardust Crusaders and one of the most recurring characters in the series. Basically the guy who shows up, says, "good grief," and then punches problems until they stop existing. He starts off as a tough Japanese delinquent teenager who suddenly develops a mysterious power he thinks is an evil spirit, which leads him to literally turn himself into jail, because obviously that's the logical first step. His origin really kicks in when the Joestar family's ancient enemy Dio returns, causing his mother to fall gravely ill, and Jotaro sets out on a globe-trotting journey with his grandfather to defeat Dio and save her, proving that family problems in JoJo are never just talk-it-out situations. His power comes from his stand, Star Platinum, a close-range humanoid spirit with absurd strength, speed, and precision, capable of smashing through steel, catching tiny objects mid-air, and delivering rapid-fire punches known as the iconic Ora Ora Ora. Despite its short range, it's one of the strongest stands ever, and later it gains the ridiculous ability to stop time for a few seconds, letting Jotaro casually beat enemies while they're frozen like a paused video. Combined with his calm, calculating personality and nerves of steel, Jotaro is basically a walking boss fight who somehow manages to look bored while saving the world.
Josuke Higashikata. Josuke Higashikata is the main protagonist of Diamond is Unbreakable, the fourth part of JoJo's bizarre adventure, and he's basically a stylish high schooler with a heart of gold, and hair you should absolutely never insult if you value your safety. He lives in Morio and is revealed to be the illegitimate son of Joseph Joestar, meaning he's part of the famous Joestar bloodline even though he was raised by his mother and grandfather without knowing his father at first. His origin ties into the Joestar family's connection to supernatural powers called stands. As a child, he developed his stand during the same events that awakened others in the bloodline, though it left him seriously ill until he recovered.
After his grandfather's death, Josuke decides to protect Morio from dangerous stand users, essentially becoming the town's unofficial guardian. His power is his stand, Crazy Diamond, which can restore objects and living beings to a previous state, meaning he can heal injuries, fix broken items, and even pull off clever tricks like reconstructing objects around enemies or tracking things by restoring fragments. However, it can't bring the dead back to life, and ironically, it can't heal himself, which is kind of unfair for someone who fixes literally everything else. Josuke is known for his kindness, creativity in battle, and explosive temper when his hair is mocked, proving that while he can fix almost anything, bad hair comments are beyond even his power. Giorno Giovanna. Giorno Giovanna is the main protagonist of Vento Oreo, Part 5 of Jojo's Bizarre Adventure, a 15-year-old with big dreams and even bigger hair donuts. He's the illegitimate son of Dio, conceived using the body of Jonathan Joestar, which basically makes him a walking DNA crossover episode, inheriting both the Joestar sense of justice and Dio's ruthless ambition.
Originally born in Japan as Haruno Shiobana, he later moves to Italy and grows up in a rough environment before deciding he wants to rise within the mafia group Passion and become a gangstar to fix its corruption, because apparently normal career choices were too boring.
His power comes from his stand called Gold Experience, which allows him to create and manipulate life, meaning he can turn objects into living organisms, heal injuries, and even reflect damage back at enemies, so punching him is basically signing your own complaint form. Later, he evolves this ability into Gold Experience Requiem, an absurdly overpowered form that can revert actions to zero, essentially undoing anything his opponent tries so they never reach their intended result, which is less fight and more, nope, try again forever. Giorno is a calm, intelligent, and determined character who values life deeply, yet has no problem crushing villains, making him a strange but effective mix of hero and menace, like someone who politely saves you and then roasts your existence right after. Jolyne Cujoh. Jolyne Cujoh is the main protagonist of JoJo's Bizarre Adventure Stone Ocean and the 6th JoJo, and despite your his wording, she's very much a she, and a pretty tough one at that. She's the daughter of Jotaro Kujo, but instead of inheriting a peaceful life, she gets framed for a crime she didn't commit and is sent to Green Dolphin Street Prison. While in prison, her life goes from "this is unfair" to "this is bizarre" when a pendant containing a fragment of a stand arrow pricks her, awakening her stand ability. At first, just an ordinary girl, she quickly grows into a determined fighter whose goal is to save her father and defeat the villain Enrico Pucci. Her power is her stand, Stone Free, which lets her unravel her body into string, yes, literally turn herself into spaghetti, but dangerous spaghetti. These strings can be used for attacking, binding enemies, creating barriers, sensing vibrations like a human spider sense, and even stitching her body back together when injured, making her both versatile and surprisingly hard to take down. She can also reform those strings into a humanoid stand that punches enemies with extended range, proving that fists plus creativity equals chaos. Jolyne's origin is a mix of wrongful imprisonment and inherited destiny, and her power is basically what if yarn could beat you up, which sounds silly until you realize she uses it to outsmart some of the weirdest enemies in the series.
Joestar. Joestar is the main protagonist of JoJo's Bizarre Adventure Part 7 Steel Ball Run, the 7th JoJo, originally born as Jonathan Joestar and once famous as a prodigy horse jockey before his life took a dramatic nosedive when he was shot in the back and became paraplegic, leaving him unable to walk and stuck contemplating life choices like, maybe I shouldn't have gotten shot today. His origin really kicks off in 1890 when he encounters Gyro Zeppeli, whose mysterious steel balls briefly restore movement to his legs, convincing Johnny to join the cross-country steel ball run race in hopes of learning the secret technique called the spin and regaining his ability to walk. Along the journey, he also becomes entangled in the hunt for the Holy Corpse, believing it can return him to zero, which basically means fixing his broken life. His power centers around his stand, Tusk, which evolves through multiple acts and works alongside the spin.
At first, he fires his fingernails like bullets, yes, weaponized manicure, then gains abilities like enhanced rotation, wormhole-like movement, and eventually the terrifying infinite rotation, a force that can bypass defenses and manipulate space itself. Combined with superhuman traits and precise marksmanship, Johnny transforms from a disabled ex-jockey into one of the most dangerous stand users around, proving that even if life knocks you down, you can still shoot your nails at it until it apologizes.
Josuke Higashikata, Part 8. Josuke Higashikata is the main character of JoJo's bizarre adventure, Jojo Lion, a mysterious young man who basically wakes up one day with zero memories, like he hit the world's hardest reset button and forgot to save his progress. He's discovered buried near the Wall Eyes in Morio and is given the name Josuke by Yasuho, starting his quest to figure out who he really is. As it turns out, his origin is anything but normal. He isn't just one person, but the fusion of two individuals, Jolyne Cujoh and Yoshikage Kira, whose bodies and identities were combined through the strange effects of the land and a special fruit called the Loka Kaka, creating a completely new being. His power comes from his stand called Soft and Wet, which lets him create soap-like bubbles that can steal properties from objects or people, like friction, sound, or even eyesight, making fights both creative and very confusing for his enemies. Later, he develops a stronger ability called Go Beyond, where his bubbles gain a special spinning energy that can bypass normal logic and deal devastating damage. Josuke's story is about identity, mystery, and figuring out who you are when your past is literally a mashup of two other people, which honestly sounds stressful, but at least he got cool bubble powers out of it.
Hey everyone! Thank you for watching until the end. I'll be back with more videos, so make sure to like and subscribe.